There's an awful lot with Castle on the Coast to love, and it starts off by taking you right the way back to the late 90s and early 2000s by being a real old school 3D platformer game that is all about collecting things. This game is a collectathon through and through, and all of your progress in this game is largely gated by getting a certain amount of collectibles to then open up the next bit of the game. Thankfully, those minimums are quite low, but because everything is everywhere, you find yourself just collecting things because it's there in front of you and you're forever driven forward. You do this by controlling George the giraffe, which initially I thought was a missed opportunity for a certain other mascot, but this is a mascot for the Valley Children's Hospital over in California. And I really like the idea that a mascot that's involved with children's health and well-being and that caring nature is now transported into its own 3D platforming game, and I just thought that was quite cute. What I'd also say, and I wonder if this is because of this being associated with a children's hospital, is that the game is hugely sensory. And what I mean by that is that the colours are bright and bold and shimmering, and things kind of wobble and jiggle around everywhere. And George has like a little roll ability which allows him to just roll around like a giant ball, almost like Super Monkey Ball-esque. And when he does that, a tabla starts playing, and it's very musical, percussive, and again it just parks back to all of these different sensory things that I think immerses you into this dreamlike, trippy landscape that you're in. The game itself, though, is Parkour light, and I'll try and explain what I mean. George is exceptionally agile. He can run, jump, double jump, wall jump, spin, dive, roll, and then after that you start to unlock other things like jetpacks very, very early on. And so what you can do is run, double jump into jetpack and then cross chasms really, really easily. And the game is exceptionally forgiving. So long as you touch something, then it resets your ability to be able to do that double jump and into jetpack again. And so what you'll find is that you might like face plant up against a wall, but then that allows you to start that jumping process and kind of flollop back up again. And this is because the whole game is exceptionally, and I mean exceptionally, floaty. And ordinarily, this would make me really dislike a game when you've got very floaty controls. But it's because this entire game seems to take place in like 0.75 G, as opposed to like normal gravity as being 1 G. Just when you jump, there's this arc to it. When you're on bounce pads, you fly up and you've got loads of time to react before you kind of flollop back down again. And you can maneuver yourself to try and get yourself into the best places possible to continue your streak and not fall off into, say, like lava and die, for example. And this then plays into being easy to play because you're able to cheese yourself basically onto platforms, especially when it starts to get really complicated in the mirror sequences that take place in this game, which I'll explain in a second. All of those kind of wobble like jelly or rotate around like massive machines, so it's not expecting you to land perfectly on things that are like at 60-degree angles, but it resets everything that allows you to kind of really woolily bounce off of things. By the end of the game, I still wasn't 100% convinced whether or not this was the best control mechanism for it, but what it did do was allow me to cheese my way through things in a way that still felt like I had enough control to not feel like it was stupid, but it was just very, very forgiving as I played it through. And I think that would really help perhaps young gamers, or thinking again back to the fact that this is based off of a mascot from a children's hospital, children that probably don't have they might get tired easily, that kind of stuff, and don't want that frustration of having to redo stuff over and over again. And this lies into the fact that the checkpoints are really, really frequent. So when you do get something wrong, you don't go back very far. With all of that going on, and the floatiness of everything, and the fact that collectibles are everywhere, what this game does is it places you into a castle on a coast, funnily enough. You'd never have guessed. And almost like one of the latest Mario Galaxy, Mario Odyssey style games, it's like a central hub for everything that goes on around you. And there's 4 different levels or worlds that you can then explore. Now, these are wildly different in size, and it's one of my few immediate down points of this game. The first area is huge and is really about 50-60% of the actual game is all in World 1. And so you kind of think, oh god, this is going to be a really, really meaty game. And then World 2 is half of World 1, and 3 and 4 are really quick. And I was like, oh, I'm over with already. And so the game does feel slightly lopsided from that perspective. But what it has in lopsidedness or lacks in that kind of structure, it makes up in trying to do lots of different things constantly over and over. So you'll be going around collecting whatever is the flavour of collectible for this specific area to then unlock mirrors, which allow you to then transfer through to this weird trippy mirror world where it's like you're in a jelly but stone-based mechanism, like a clock or time that's kind of rotating and flying around everywhere. And these are really vibrant, very in your face, very tricky to navigate around because there's so much going on. But what I liked is that every single one of them plays or does something different. So it could be that you want to roll around on a ball through one of them. There's another one where you get into a car and there's like a skate park and you have to do like tricks and drive through rings to get enough rings captured for you to then move on. There's other ones where you're kind of going around in a glider, but the hang glider only lasts for a few seconds, so you've really got to think about how stuff goes and where you're going to basically jump off before the hang glider falls out the sky, so that you can almost like dovetail into the next one. These sound quite tricky, but again, going back to these really floaty controls, you can course correct yourself really, really easily. The other thing I'd say as well is that a lot of the levels early on in the game, or the areas early on in the game, look way more difficult than what they are, because a lot of them are built over water. But actually, Geoffrey the giraffe can swim. So if you fall into the water, there's an entire part of the level underwater that you can go and explore and collect more and more stuff as you go. And if you want to 100% this game by collecting everything, then actually you can... you need to go underwater and you need to get things wrong, essentially. The other thing I'd say as well is that if you've got someone else that you want to come and play along with, you can have player 2 come in and control Swells the squirrel. And Swells the squirrel doesn't have like immediate direct control. George will still be doing all of like the running around, but they have additional attacks and stuff like that. So they can also become a parachute. So this is really handy if you're doing like a double jump and a jetpack, then someone else can come in with the parachute afterwards and it lets you get even further around. And that's what I mean by it being parkour light, because with all of that floatiness and flexibility, you've got plenty of fun to be had. Now, these floaty controls are absolutely not for everyone. The retro 3D, slightly janky graphics won't be for everyone either. The music was okay. I normally associate this style of gameplay with some of the best soundtracks in gaming ever. This one isn't necessarily one to write home about, but it's not terrible either. What is terrible and absolutely hilarious is the voice acting for the cast. Half of them sound really phoned in, but almost phoned in to the point where it's funny again. So again, if you like the so bad it's good side of things, perhaps the voice acting Castle on the Coast will be for you. So yeah, this is an interesting recommendation because I don't think this game will be nearly for everyone. I think some people will be really disappointed with the fact that there is no precision to these controls. It's exceptionally floaty. Whereas other people, I think, will get off on the fact that because it's so janky and floaty, you can get absolutely everywhere and scale a massive castle or a mountain very, very quickly because it requires less effort and less precision and less skill. So wherever you sit on that fence, I think will decide whether or not Castle on the Coast is for you. Written review will be over on highplanegames.com in about a day or so's time. Hope that was informative, but if you've got any comments or questions, leave them down in the comments below and I'll get back to you. Cheers. Bye-bye. Higher Plane Games is part of the Higher Plane Network, a completely independent media outlet supported by people like you. The goal is to create the best possible content that cultivates a richer indie scene for games as well as music and entertainment. To find out more and to get involved, visit patreon.com/higherplane network. Your support makes all the difference, and in return you'll gain access to bonus content and downloads. Thank you for watching.